Welcome to the Symphony of Realities podcast, boldly taking you where no podcast has gone before. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation as you settle into your X, Y, and Z coordinates within time and space. Here are your hosts, Christopher Anatra and Sean Bond.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 12 of the Symphony of Realities podcast, taking you where no podcast has gone before. Today, we have another very special and fun show for you planned. We're going to be getting more into the secret space program and what that's all about in our holographic universe and our holographic reality dream world. With me today is Sean Bond. Hello, Sean.
I'm back. Hello.
Sean, we made it to episode 12.
Yes. Yeah, we're having prom. Hey, can you introduce how yourself and what people can reach, and I'll do mine?
Yes, so you know me as a quantum businessman, also the quantum blissnessman, as I especially do my light language videos. You can find me on YouTube. If you're watching this video, you probably did already know what my channel is, but it's Quantum Businessman on YouTube. And I have a website called quantumbusinessman.com. What about you, Sean? How can we find you?
Hi, I'm Sean Bond of Psionic League, psionicleague.com and YouTube. Also on Facebook, do consultations, healing, unlock people's psionic potential. And I like to interview like-minded guests, such as who we're going to have on.
Yes, exactly. We have a very fascinating guest with so much information. Some of you may have heard of him before, some of you may not, but we would like to introduce onto our show and to this episode today, Captain Randy Cramer. Welcome, Randy.
Mute.
There I am. I'm unmuted. How you guys doing today? Thanks for having me.
We're doing good.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how people can reach you.
At the moment, best place to reach us is at the University of Conscious Evolution.com. We also have a Facebook page, University of Conscious Evolution, and Twitter and Instagram for people to follow stuff that we post. But if you want to get in touch with us or see what we're doing, reach us directly at our website or via Facebook.
Awesome. So Randy, you have a lot of experience and you have a lot of knowledge about what's called the secret space program, the super soldier projects, and all of that. And you have so many videos that you've created, like so many over the years. But I know that a lot of our viewers may not have any. This could be their first, glimpse of who you are. Just kind of give us an overview about who Randy Cramer is and how you got to this point, and just a glimpse of some of the things you've experienced.
Sure. So you're starting to cover covert military space program activity. It's fairly common when covert military space programs recruit and or acquire personnel. Sometimes it's acquire. That those personnel are sent for tours of duty that can be any length of time. They tend to be 10, 20, 30, or 40 years, really depending on the individual in question, how useful they are, how long they stay useful. Not everybody stays useful for 20, 30, or 40 years. Some people wear out their physical and mental usefulness, usually because of bad training and bad, dare I say, bad manufacturing. Since I'm a person, but I'm also a toaster, right? I mean, I'm altered enough, right, as a person that there's I'm not just a natural biological human being anymore, but that doesn't make me any less of a person too, but it also makes me equipment, right? And any personnel who are utilized in this way are equipment, and depending on how they're trained and utilized can really shorten the lifespan of their equipment usage, not necessarily their lifespan as a human being, which can also be cut short, but literally just depending on how they're made, developed, trained, can limit the amount of time that they really have as effective use in the field. But it can be any number of decades. So, and typically, because it's super secret, covert, there's a real wiping of the process away from the eyes and ears and awareness of people around that person. So usually people are taken for a tour. Again, they could be 10, 20, 30, 40 years long, brought back 15 minutes after they left. Trace amounts of time travel are used here so that they can be reinserted into their timeline in a body that's been, they say age reversed. That's not how it works. It's really a misnomer of the use of term, but essentially puts you in a body that's the same age that you were when you left, return you 15 minutes after you left for the first time, which is now decades later, return you 15 minutes later. But when you wake up in your body that's that age, in your bedroom, and you feel like you had a dream that just lasted a really, really long time. Like I can remember waking up the next day in my bed and literally having this whole thing go through my brain. It goes, wow, I think I was dreaming for months and months and months and months and months. And then, oh, no, it's gone. Okay. You know how you wake up and the dream just, oh, it's gone now. So, but I can remember vividly waking up feeling like, wow, I haven't been asleep for 8 hours. I've been asleep for months and months and months and months and months. And now I'm waking up here. But again, the brain is both programmed and designed to kind of shut all that stuff down for survival. So you quickly go into like denial, and you don't want to think about it. And then the memory recovery process, depending on the individual, can take years, decades. And so there was a memory recovery process that took, minimum, I would say. I mean, I was getting about halfway there, I would say, after about 10 years. Which was about the time that my brigadier general contacted me and was like, would you like to talk publicly about your story? And I was, no, I do not want to do that under any circumstance. He convinced me. We had a lot of conversations about it, and he convinced me that it was just a good idea for a lot of reasons I won't go into, but I was not thrilled about the idea at first. So, and then that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years is talking to the general public, doing talks, doing in-person classes. We started doing the online class last year. And when we rebooted that this year, and something we're pretty proud of, and interviews, talks, lectures, the stuff I've done for Gaia, and mostly the PR stuff. And then there's other stuff that I have as my job as an independent field commander, but that's just kind of a whole nother story I don't necessarily want to go into right this second. But that's my job. So quite technically and literally, I am, according to the command, as far as the command staff of United States Marine Corps Special Section is concerned, I am an independent active duty field commander, which has kind of a special status. They don't pay me, but I have a rank and security clearance that is active.
That makes sense. And I have to say that when I first discovered you, it was on Gaia TV, and I saw those episodes. Yeah. So that was very impactful. And last week we interviewed Tony Rodriguez, and Tony mentioned about this Great Awakening poster, which is kind of a famous thing. And there's a section on there for the SSP whistleblowers. And if we could bring up that image on the screen, I should have known this, but you're on there too. So if you look at that section, like you're one of many people that are listed there.
I'm not going to agree with every piece of item that's on that paper, but it's somebody's really good attempt to put it all on a piece of paper and try and Venn diagram some of it. But
it's like
I
a
could
rabbit
go through
hole
with the
map.
red pen and I'd scratch off a few things, but just a few.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen that before. Yeah, I'm in there somewhere. I don't care.
At least gives you some clues, what's going on with the reality for sure.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a good attempt. Whoever did it, it's a good attempt.
To the left at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah. So
somewhere in there, right, in that list of everybody else. Yeah.
So a lot of your experiences, from what I understand, had to do with Mars. And
17 years of my 30-year tour that I spent there, so a little more than half my time. Yeah.
And interestingly, on December 8th, Mars is going to be the closest to the Earth. Every 26 months, it makes a close approach, a mere 38 million miles. So Mars is going to be more visible in the sky in the upcoming month than ever before. And there was something in the news recently about Mars I wanted to get your opinion on.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do with this rainbow on Mars. Because, NASA will say that there's no moisture on Mars. It's completely, dry. And there is an image we could pull up of a rainbow on Mars. Now,
Oh, nice. Check that out.
yeah. So according to NASA, already skeptical, it's a lens flare. NASA says rainbows
or swamp gas.
Or swamp gas. That you need some kind of like water droplets in the air or ice to form that. So I want to get your opinion on that, Randy.
Sure. Okay. So the best way that I can probably frame this is to go back in time a little bit and talk about the way in which NASA has officially viewed and or stated the state of Mars as a planet, and how that's changed, and how they've changed it so slowly over time that most of it hasn't been noticed. So you start out in the 70s and they're like, nope, nothing there, right? No biological life, nothing. However, the Viking lander did 3 tests. And there were soil tests to basically look for gassing out of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, to see if there are microorganisms. And because the tests were just set up differently, one had a certain ppms of gas change that was sort of below what the acceptable standard of finding life was. Another test had thousands more ppms because it was a slightly different test. It was a confirmation test, essentially, that there's biological life, there's organisms, there's something there. And they chose at that point to go, yeah, we're going to go with the test that says there's nothing there. We're going to go with that. And then they're like, okay, no water, no atmosphere, nothing. And we're going to take pictures that make the sky look red. So over time, you have a change in that. And most of that started to change really in fact, kind of probably the early 2000s. We have late 90s, early 2000s. And the first thing that they changed was the first picture that they took from a lander on the surface in which they didn't use the red filter. And they used a blue, and they let the sky be blue. And literally without saying a word. Just didn't say a word, didn't say, oh, look at the sky, look how blue it is. They just took the filter off, took the red filter off, and were like, oh, look, Mars has a blue sky. So pictures from the landers more recently will show a blue sky. So they just kind of let that one slide. The 2 biggies were, or 3 biggies, were ones that weren't mentioned too loudly. So first of all, they detected water droplets that formed on like sand dunes and rolled down the sides, and they were like, oh, that's running water by the very scientific, most basic scientific definition. So they were like, oh, hey, guess what? There's some water running down the surface. And it was like, oh, there's actually a really big body of water underground somewhere, like maybe an ocean sized. Hey, how about that? That's cool.
What we're going to announce today is that Mars is not the dry, arid planet that we thought of in the past. Today we're going to announce that under certain circumstances, liquid water has been found on Mars.
And then they ran a gas mass spectrometer image where they were like, oh, it looks like there's gases in the atmosphere. And so maybe there is a little bit of an atmosphere there. And then not long after that, what I'm laying out happened probably somewhere between 6, 9, and 12 months apart, each one. Dropped, like I said, late 90s, early 2000s. And the last one in the series of these admissions, but they came, on a back page somewhere on the website that no one was really looking at. But NASA has admitted to each and every one of those things. And the final one, which is my favorite one, which was after all that came out, and after they had found used the mass gas spectrometer to find gas particles. The head of NASA said in a statement, again, that ended up on the back of their website, but I want to try and get this quote right. He said, we may have to accept that there is livable atmosphere on Mars right now. So on the one hand, they're admitting to quite a bit. Those changes in admission are huge, but they did them slowly over a little time period so that there was a little transition, so that most people aren't even paying attention that there was a change. And now people who start to pay attention aren't even aware that there was a previous conversation that involved different facts, right? And they can just kind of walk the narrative wherever they want. So they've been admitting to those things over time. So of course I'm not surprised that there's a rainbow there. I've been there. I know you can breathe it there. It's thin in some places. Where we were up very high north, it's super thin. You can't just breathe it without oxygen assisted or an environment suit, really. I mean, not for very long. But down near the equator, didn't seem to be a problem. I mean, when we stepped off the ship at the tarmac on the ground there, came out into the open, I was shocked to breathe cool, dry air that had enough oxygen in it that I wasn't going to fall over and die. So it's different thinness depending on where you are, elevations and so forth. But I would expect that. And again, if you want to dig through the NASA admissions that I just mentioned, they're in there. Like you can go to their website and do searches and dig that shit up. But they have admitted over time these changes that they used to say are this way, that they've actually completely admitted are no longer like that. They've just done it very quietly. So there hasn't been a lot of hullabaloo or a lot of what? No, it was again like what we call in the analysis of journalism game, a page D12 story, which you put in when there were newspapers, back in my day when there were newspapers, and you kids don't read newspapers anymore. There was sections. You had an A section, a B section, a C section, and a D section. D section is the last section of the paper. 12 is the last page of the last section. You put a story on D12, most people aren't going to read it. Statistically, everyone reads A1, B1, sometimes C1, sometimes A2, A3. But you put a story on D12, no one's going to fucking read it. So that was really just putting something on D12, which no one was going to look at. But they absolutely made these admissions very clear, but in a very, very quiet back of the page way that most people haven't noticed. But since I follow that shit, I tracked that shit as it was happening. And I thought, and it was amazing to watch and go, oh my God, they just admitted something else. Oh, they just changed that. So they've gone quite a long ways. They've just done it so slowly, so gradually, and so quietly. They've tried to do it so that no one's noticed that they've changed it.
Exactly.
Right. And like, I think they put aerogel on some of the satellites, and they picked up like these frozen like particles of bacteria and spores. So it's like, oh, there's fungus in space, and there's like, oh, this frozen thing floating around. Also, they mentioned that they found some on Mars, so that's swept under the rug, of course. And I sent Heather a picture of the trees that you mentioned that were found on Mars. If you can bring up that picture in the private chat. But feel free to go into other subjects while she's doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of our viewers are already extremely skeptical of NASA just because of all the inconsistencies they find all the time.
Well, I'm gonna do something that might not be popular, and I'm gonna defend NASA and Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the people who work there as hardworking, decent, honest people who want people to know the truth. The fact that they can't tell people the truth because they have security clearances, and in some cases they've been threatened or intimidated or told very clearly, this is not your department to tell otherwise. But we cannot be mad or blame the very, very hardworking people who work there, who do amazing work, who work long hours to do stuff with backwards technology compared to some of the stuff that we do have, but they're working really, really hard with what we have to do the best we can to try and continue to have a space program and be interested in it. So first thing I'm going to do is defend the people who work at NASA and JPL. When we're talking about people who are the ones who are confusing the issue, not telling the truth, like separating that line. You're talking about the senior administrators, and senior administrators are not the people who work at NASA. They're not the people who work at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. People who work there are amazing, smart, brilliant, hardworking people who deserve a ton of credit for the work that they do. It's not their fault that we're not being told the absolute truth. We need to make a separation between blaming an organization and all the people who work there, which doesn't help our case, doesn't make us friends there, doesn't make us, those people want to talk to us and share information and share photos with us, like how I got these. Or, which in this case I got from someone who used to work for NASA. So I got this from a NASA employee who gave me these and some other stuff. So there's some good people in there who have leaked some stuff out and have want us to know stuff. But there are a lot of people who just don't want to lose their job, don't want their families to be threatened or intimidated, and don't want their brakes to get cut in their car or any of the other weird things that can happen. So they're good people. I want to start with that. Upper, appointed administrators, senior administrators, who are the ones who are messing with this storyline, those people bear a certain brunt of that, but they're also being just told what to do. They're people who are in a position where, all right, if I don't do what I'm told, I also could lose my career and put my family's life in jeopardy. So the people who are running this organization are good people. They're not doing this because they want to deceive everybody about what's happening. They would like to be the ability to tell you the truth. They would love that. The engineers there would love their hands on the technology that can get them somewhere faster. So the people who work there are amazing. And I want to make sure that we don't talk bad about the people who work there, because they're good people. But people who are controlling the strings of administrators and policy are the ones who are making this information not accessible. So it's those people, a very tiny number of senior administrators, not the vast majority of amazing, hardworking people who have dedicated their lives to space travel using the technology we have to do some really amazing work. So I got to defend people at NASA and JPL for being hardworking motherfuckers.
Cool. And what picture are we looking at here?
Oh, that's a forest near the southern hemisphere. And so this is an infrared image. But to me, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. So these look like very tall coniferous trees to me. These look like tall fir pine trees. They don't look like hardwood trees. They don't look like oaks or poplars or anything like that. They look to me, that looks like a pine or a fir forest to me. More like a fir forest than a pine forest. But that shit takes a lot of moisture. You can't grow evergreens without moisture, for sure. And again, NASA's also admitted that most of the water that they're finding is underground. So, Mars has got lots of water. It's just all underground. So there's lots of underground streams, creeks, rivers, oceans, lakes, etc. So if those trees can tap roots deep enough into an aquifer that's close enough to the surface, there's lots of water.
That makes sense.
That water too. They got some interesting species down there. And I think this is from one of, I forget which presentation you did. You can probably like name it if people want to go back to that, and they can type in like Randy Cramer and NASA Mars trees.
Maybe you might be able to find those. The last time I did a search around for older stuff that I'd done, most of it was not on YouTube anymore. Most of it was like gone. So there's stuff, 10 years worth of interviews that a bunch of it seems to have vanished off of the platform.
Unfortunately.
No surprise, but whatever. But you might be able to look for it. You might be able to find it. Yeah, there's a couple talks where I talked about that and showed those pictures. I should probably do another one since it got taken down, since we got our own channel up and everything. I got a weird reflection that makes it look like I got something weird on my nose. I'm trying to not look like I got weird lights on my face.
Tell us who you have.
Embrace the light.
Looks like I got a weird tattoo right here, and it's not helping. But I don't know. Oh wait, that's almost not terrible. Okay, say again. Okay, what was the last question?
Tell us who you have with you.
Oh, this is my partner Kendra.
Hi, Kendra.
She is amazing. And when we decided to reboot the class, we had a long conversation about what I had done with the class before, work that she had been doing and research that she had been doing and stuff that she had thought about doing for a course that she wanted to do. And I was like, why don't we just stick all our stuff together in one course? And so we merged 10 years of her research and the stuff that I've been working on into our beginning course.
So psionics is a pretty broad subject, which covers a lot of smaller groups of fundamentals that I would hope over the course of this course will give you tools that enable you to put some of those fundamentals together into a larger construct of something that does a lot more than something very simple. But we're going to start with very basic fundamentals here. So psionics itself, what does that mean? It's a fundamental breakdown of two words, psi and onyx, which depending on how you want to translate those things, either means mind method or mind waves.
And she figured out, she built the new website. She did all that. That's gorgeous because she did that and figured out the graphic software first and started making all our stuff look pretty. So she has literally been the nuts and bolts of all of the technical stuff that's been happening with our shit recently. So she's made it happen is what she did. But she's awesome. So we've decided that to create the University of Conscious Evolution instead of try and promote my stuff or her stuff, because we're just not self-centered people. It's not about me. It's not about her. We would rather teach information. We would rather have this be about knowledge, learning, information, understanding, and thank you very much if people want to respect that I'm presenting that information because of my reputation. But we're really doing this because the information is important and teaching people psionic development is important, with a separation from you should do this because I'm amazing and I'm telling you should be amazing. Like, that's super narcissistic to me. And I see too many people do that shit and it bugs the crap out of me. And I'm anti all of that. So I feel like we really had a conversation about it and we're like, well, let's make it a university. It's a school. It's about teaching people skills, knowledge, information, so that they can do something that's amazing instead of trying to make everybody compare themselves to us and be like, you should be like us and that crap or something. That just did not ring very good with either one of us. So we wanted to make it a school. So that's what we did there. Sidebar to that.
Tell us about your psionics school and like how you got into this. And what do you recommend for people that might want to get into it?
Okay, so many years ago, the first conference that I did, someone asked me if I wanted to teach a workshop at the end, and I said, sure. I had no idea what I was going to teach a workshop on, and so I talked to my brigadier general, and I was like, I don't know, what should I teach a workshop on? And he said, what do you want to teach a workshop on? And I was like, that's not helpful. And he said, well, all right, what do you think is the most important thing that people need to know right now? And I was like, and it just really popped into my head. I was like, psionics. Like, people need psionic development. People need tools. People need to understand this shit. Like, we're a psionically emergent species where most people don't know any of the tools and don't know any of the manual or handbook stuff at all. And so I was like, that. And he was like, okay, do that. Oh, seriously? I was astonished. I was like, seriously, you want me to teach like from the manual, from the special section manual to a civilian group of students? He was like, yeah, do that. So I was, okay, let's do that. So I cranked out a few notes from sort of what I could talk about or teach or show people in a couple hours, which wasn't much, given as much as material as in the manual. But we did something that was actually super effective and got everybody to have a definitive theta wave experience, which is a subconscious meditative super brain experience. When we talk about states of consciousness, meditation being a scientifically definable state of consciousness as a theta wave state, and how to having gotten everybody into a theta wave state for this class, they all had a pretty good experience with it. And I was like, okay, cool. I guess maybe I'm doing this now. So I started teaching the in-person class, and over a certain number of years, taught a bunch of them, but would basically have to crunch it in like 4 days, and like long days of like 4 days in a row to try and like get it all together. And then I tried to like split it up into 2 weekends, and that was really hard. But it was also hard to do it in 4 days because people got to work, and some people got to try and take it off if they come in on Thursday for Friday or Monday or Tuesday or whatever. And there were interesting logistical problems. But I just kind of kept doing it every once in a while. And then I kind of stopped doing it because it was so logistically difficult. And then I was about ready to start doing classes again when COVID happened. And I was like, ruh-roh. And someone said, do an online course. And I went, all right, let's do that. So it really had not even popped into my head, the idea of doing an online course until that moment. So I was like, okay, let's do that. We're proud of what we've done with it, which is create a really watchable, listenable, absorbable course broken down into the bits so it's easily navigable and understandable. And there's a beginning course. We will be doing also a new version of the old advanced course, which has more advanced stuff. That's where we're really going to do the skill developing stuff. So we're going to do very specific skill building development on dowsing, remote viewing, precognition, and telekinesis. So it's 4 very specific skill building disciplines that we teach that are like, okay, if you do this discipline every day for weeks, months, you will get good at this skill. I guarantee it. If you pick which one you want to do, or all 4 or whatever, pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, do them all. It's going to take a lot of time if you want to do them all, but pick 1, focus on that skill, focus on that development, and you'll crank up your psionic brain muscles in such a way that helps all your other development. So it's the beginning stuff is super easy. 12-year-old could do it. The advanced stuff, a little more advanced, but we wanted to have that separation because we also found in our years of doing working with people, trying to teach meditation, psionic development skills, one-on-one with people or in smaller groups, that most people lack the fundamentals. And so we wanted a beginning course that was just fundamentals. Did I say fundamentals? Did I say fundamentals again? Did I say fundamentals one last time? Fundamentals. So it's really just getting people to harp on, get a daily practice with the fundamentals. And if you do that, you're 80% down the road, 80%. The other 20% is just adding more stuff to it. But if you can get a basic, steady daily practice using the basic fundamentals, that's 80% of the work right there. Oh, yeah. And Kendra's also doing an emotional healing course, which is, again, all of her research stuff. And since I don't want to deal with people's touchy-feely stuff, I just don't want to. That's her specialty. And so, we're going to have, which I teach my students, look, you got to deal with your emotional shit. You just have to, right? In the process of dealing with yourself, dealing with your mind, getting into your subconscious, you will at some point have to deal with your emotional shit. I just don't like talking about it and telling people how to do it. But she's got a whole course on how to help people sort that shit out. We decided that since everybody just can't figure out how to manifest right, and since most of them are doing it wrong, we're going to do a little mini manifesting course talking about the fundamental physics relationships of all of the factors that go into play into finding your sweet spot to manifesting. Because the more we talked about it, the more we realized it's like, well, this is really like 6 or 8 points in physics and application that we could just do as a mini course. So we're going to have that. And we got some other ideas of stuff that we want to do to continue to keep adding to that curriculum, other than just weekly educational videos, publishing some of the Q&As on YouTube for people, regular live discussion sections and talks and so forth. What's that? Oh, yeah, and the inner circle. We're going to do a thing for people can do a monthly membership and they'll get a newsletter, and they're going to get, we're going to do a monthly Zoom, and we're just going to talk about some shit that I can't talk about in public. And then people get to ask me the questions that they can't ask me or that I can't answer always in a public forum, because we're not going to record it. We're not going to post them. You show up for the conversation, you hear it, and then that's it. If you heard it, good for you. If you didn't, you're shit out of luck on that one. Because there's just certain information that if I want to tell it to people, that's how it has to be. It can't get uploaded somewhere. We can talk about it, I can share it, and then it's as if it never happened. And so those people can walk away with that information, but it's not stuff that we can publish, post without me getting flack for it. But we can talk about it, and people can ask. It's going to be a free forum for questions, meaning any question that anybody has is open to go on our list of questions for me to attempt to answer, while also discussing some real shizzle that's going on. So did I miss anything? I think I covered most of it there. I just gave you the infomercial.
Yeah, no, that sounds fun, especially getting a hold of you to get your opinions and getting some of that like top secret type information, and how some of these psionic abilities like precognition, how could that help us in our lives? Yeah, these are all important things I think people need to start wrapping their heads around, that they're actually capable of these things.
Yeah, oh, that's our kind of our whole point, is that these are innate abilities for anyone. There are differences in upbringing and nurture that can really impact a person's framework on whether they can or can't do these things. Most kids reach an age where imagination is no longer tolerated, right? And so kids are having psionic experiences up until the point where imagination is no longer tolerated. And when imagination is no longer tolerated, then they're told by adults, that's not real, that's just your imagination, and they shut it all down.
That's right.
If kids were allowed to explore this in a safe, like conversational way about how there's some science and some physics to, explain some of this stuff. A person who grew up from that childhood would be in a completely different state of readiness and probably ability to produce outputs that are psionic outputs that are higher than someone who was repressed or told at a very young age, stop talking to your imaginary friends and stop thinking you can talk to animals and stop thinking that you can see auras around people or something. When you get shut down, it makes it harder to kind of like turn it back on again when you get older. And so because we're dealing with adults and not kids, you're dealing with people who've either had kind of a higher acceptance upbringing or a lower acceptance upbringing. So that's really the factor that affects people most. But the basics and the fundamentals are a stepping stone process that quite literally, I feel very confident to say, here are like 10 steps. You do every step diligently, reliably, daily, every day for weeks or months. You will see development and change in your mind and your brain, perceptions, and how everything up here works. This is definitively not a method. This is the science of how this shit works. So it's, if you do A, B will happen. If you do C, D will happen. If you do E, F will happen. And there are some criteria. Sometimes you have to do E a certain way, but if you do it a certain way, F will occur. So there's a very clear stepping stone process here. And again, why we've simplified and made the beginning course very simple and straightforward, so that a person who has no experience meditating or a person who's been meditating their whole life can all start at the same point, square one. People just forget that you need step 1, and you need step 2, and you need step 3, and you need step 4, and you repeat those steps, and you will be able to meditate. You will be able to experience subconscious theta states, and you will get development if you do that regularly. And I mean daily. When I say regularly, I mean daily. You can do it twice a week. You can do it 3 times a week, but your progress is going to be minimal. Every day will get you progress. I have to be careful about legal guarantees because I could get in trouble, but You will. If you do that shit every day, you will make progress. You will. It's the scientifically definitive steps here.
And
It's
you'll
not
become
about
a
a
pro.
method, or if you believe this, it'll work, or if you pray to this figure, it'll work, or if you say this prayer, it'll work. It's no. If you do this step, it will happen. It will work. Boy, I got this really weird reflection off of my face. Now it looks like I get. Nope, that doesn't help. I don't know which is worse here, but okay. Trying to work with all my reflections.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is what you're saying. And by the way, I do have another opinion question for you about NASA. We'll get into that a little bit. But Sean, Sean, from the Psionic League, what would you like to share about what Randy just said about psionics?
Oh, I agree. I love Psionics. It's one of my favorite things in the world, and passion why I made my league. Yeah, it's going to save the world. It's the number one thing that like changes the timeline. It outperforms predictive models, and it's our birthright. And like there's so many species and entanglement to limit us into it, and the mind control involved on this planet just to hold us back from realizing the power we have within, to which dwarfs any negative actions of control that one would surmise could possibly be orchestrating the timeline to ants. So figuring out how to unlock this power deep within is one of the big things to focus on. So it's why I appreciate Randy Cramer and his work to bring this out and show people that all these, when people look up super natural abilities or psionics or psychic abilities or what magic or whatever, they get the stream, especially now with YouTube. I used to be able to research a lot of stuff and go down rabbit holes. Now you just get the mainstream media and all these like debunkers, which if you want to go into that, like I love skeptics, but the governments lose control of the people when they gain power. So it's like a great way to control people, to get them to believe they're less powerful than they really are. And who's paying these skeptics? Like Science Foundation, Chase Bank, all these, what's the point of it? And how would you get paid otherwise unless there's donors that want to control belief? So whatever.
Exactly. And we'll definitely be good. I was going to say we'll definitely be sure to like leave links so people can discover more about that psionic course that Randy has. Absolutely, I'm interested. It sounds cool.
And then Mars,
I'll make you guys a coupon code, and so your audience can get like 20% off tuition or something.
Cool.
I'll do that
at the beginning and then the comments.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. We got some ideas about all that, so talk about that later.
Okay. I found your Mars thing that you explained, that the trees. It's called the Triad Theater. Randy Cramer live at the Triad Theater, November 14th. So that would be one of those. Chris, you had some questions you want to?
Yeah. So NASA again was in the news just recently because there was this thing called the DART mission.
Yep.
And what they did with the DART mission is they basically flew a spacecraft into an asteroid to try to see if they could knock it off course. Mm-hmm. And the name of the asteroid they targeted was called Dimorphos. And Dimorphos is an asteroid that was orbiting a larger asteroid that was called Didymos. And they were both classified as potentially hazardous asteroid and near-Earth objects of the Apollo group. Mm-hmm. So when I first heard about this mission, the first thing in my head I thought is like, what could possibly go wrong? But basically, the mission was a success. So they hit the asteroid, they knocked it off course, but then some unexpected things started to happen. And that is that the asteroid it grew a tail, like a comet.
Right.
And then that tail became a double tail. And actually, if we could bring up that picture of the asteroid with Dimorphos with the tail, just so that we can see that while we're talking about that. What was interesting is that Sean and I, like what we do is we'll tune into things, like we'll tune into like, oh, that comet, that's not just a comet. It has praying mantis beings on it, or that comet has tall elf type people, like from Lord of the Rings or whatever
Sure.
it is. Okay, so here you can see the double tail that's formed. And we were both tuning into this, and we were getting like very similar things. So I'll say what I was getting first, and then I'll let Sean like add to that. And then I want to get your opinion on this, Randy. But like tuning into that, I was getting that there were 6 species, associated with this particular asteroid. The primary one was considered an insectoid, and I was getting like a millipede type being,
Okay.
or beings that were on there.
Okay.
And then Sean, tell Randy what you were getting when you were tuning into that.
Yeah, I had similar with like 11 types of things, but it was all under like a single faction that had 8 different branches off of genetic engineering, a version of an insectoid species, and then they had like 3 giant millipede, centipede worm things that are used for digging and tunneling that they used. So I thought that was interesting.
Sure.
There's a lot of media that goes into these giant worms like Dune or Mass Effect, or I've also heard you talk about these giant centipedes that rip people apart. If you want to talk about that.
Nope, I do not want to talk about that at all.
PTSD.
Yeah, I don't like them. I'll just say that. I don't like them. Don't like them. Don't like them.
Yeah, and there's another photo. If we could call that up, that's of you'll see Dimorphos in the back, and then Didymos, which is the larger asteroid. And then Sean and I were tuning into that one as well, and we were getting something regarding rare, I would say like rare metals type thing. I think,
That's
Sean, you're getting
typical for every asteroid. Yeah, to have rare earth elements on it. Most of them do.
Yeah, Sean, can you clarify that too? What you were getting?
Too bad they don't have oil in America. But yeah, I was getting rare earth metals, some kind of crystalline structure, and like this cool library and spiritual tech to it, but more advanced than what America can see as valuable. But whatever. The insects seem to be interested in the smaller one for a bit, and then they left it after get the crash, and then they're mostly on the big one. But yeah, it seems like they're digging for stuff and then have a little base there.
Yeah, asteroids. I mean, if you're going to mine an asteroid, you want to build a base inside the asteroid, right? And mine from the inside out. That's a lot safer than trying to mine from the outside in. And that would be the way that you would do that for sure.
How many types of insectoid species have you come across, if you don't mind?
I mean, less than a dozen. Probably less than a dozen. Sentient ones, like that I've met or been in the same room with. Probably less than a dozen. Maybe around 10.
With psionic abilities?
All of them. Yeah.
Are you good at telepathy?
What's that?
What things do they like to orient towards besides telepathy?
I mean, genetic engineering. Insects really seem to be masters of redesigning their own genetic engineering. So that seems to be their magical, like, brilliant gift in the universe, is a very clear understanding of how to rewrite and change their own genetic code to change their species to make them super duper adaptable. But it's not Darwinism adaptable. It's conscious, sentient adaptable. So they actually think about it and then go, we should change our DNA and make our mandibles have little grabby things on them or whatever. It's much more specific and intentional, from what I understand. The really advanced ones don't build machines so much as they build insects that do the jobs that a machine would do, whatever that job might be.
Randy, on this channel, we talk a lot about Mandela effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know what your opinion was of Mandela effects and what you think might be causing them.
Oh, I've had a couple. We've had a couple interesting ones. But it's so what causes it is temporal compression. So the time moves like a river or a stream, right? And you have parallel timelines that run next to each other,
Mhm.
or that you can think of as running next to each other parallel. And it's not an infinite number. It is a finite number, a smaller number than most people would think that it is. I understand it's not more than like 300. So, or like all of the timeline variants that exist, there's only a few hundred at most. And what happens is you have periods that last for a expansion or contraction period, or a breath of time can take like 20 years. And so you have periods of time in which timelines compress into each other and they merge and they squish together. And you have expansions when timelines will pull apart and create more timelines. And so there's like expansion, contraction, so that the timelines kind of on the outer edge get pushed in and then pulled out every 20 years or so. And compressions cause Mandela effects, right? Where you've got two parallel right next to each other timelines, where one timeline over here, somebody died on this day in 1976, but in the timeline right next to it, they died in 1981. And if you remembered it like real clear that it was in 1976, and then you look up on the internet and it's like, oh no, it was 1981, which is a case we had with the death of Bob Marley. He got shot and killed in 1976. But then when we went to look it up, it was like, oh no, that was an attempted assassination, and then he died of cancer 3 later. And we literally all day were like, what? No way.
In 1976, Marley was slated to play at Smile, Jamaica, a free concert created by the returning Jamaican Prime Minister, Michael Manley. Manley was a divisive character, and political tensions were growing between his party and his oppositions. So he tried to set up a concert to bridge the gap. Just 2 days before the concert, Marley, his wife, and his manager Don Taylor were assaulted by an unknown gunman inside Marley's home. The attack was believed to be targeted at Marley because of his support for Manley, and during the attack, Marley was reportedly shot in the chest. Despite being seriously wounded, he still got up on stage and performed for the crowd of 80,000 fans and supporters.
That's a great one.
Yeah, and look, I'm just going to be honest. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, with a lot of weed smoking hippies and enough Bob Marley fans that talked about Bob Marley all the time and how he got shot and that there's no way, having all the Bob Marley people in my life, that I would have missed that somehow and misunderstood his time of death as not being shot in 1976, but dying in a hospital in 1981. She remembered it the exact same way. And so we had an experiment. We started going around asking people. We'd go into stores and, hey, do you remember how Bob Marley died? And just start randomly polling people. And it was about 50-50. It was about half the people were like, oh no, he died from cancer. Other people, no, he got shot, right? It was about 50-50 of the people who remembered it one way or the other. So yeah, it's temporal compressions.
I agree with you. It was pretty. I saw an interview where you explained it, and I thought that was pretty cool how we came to the same conclusion on it. It's like this natural timeline garden that forms from multiple choice points, and
Right.
they can be cultivated and merged seamlessly in memory interact. Yeah, I remember what you were talking about with the gunshot, and then I saw a documentary, and I was like, what? And then I got kind of upset because it's like a fast acting cancer, and I was like, where did he get that in his toe? It's weird.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole conspiracy theory about how they put a thing in his shoe, so when he stuck his toe in his shoe, it poked his toe and he got infected, and then it gave him the cancer and then spread to his brain or his whatever it was or something. over a course of a year, whatever, just shot right up and spread to his brain and killed him. It's super suspicious either way.
After Marley successfully recovered, conspiracy theorists believe the CIA attempted different methods to silence the Rastafarian musician. They allege that Carl Colby, the son of the former CIA director William Colby, gave Marley a pair of boots designed to sabotage the Jamaican activist. They claim that a radioactive copper wire was placed inside the boot that pricked his toe, causing his cancer. These theorists claim that Marley's skin color should have made him harder to contract a melanoma, since it's more common in fair-skinned individuals. But the Mayo Clinic has shown that melanomas can still occur commonly in dark-skinned people, particularly in hidden areas that don't get much sunlight, such as under a toenail. Others claim that Marley's German diet physician was a former SS officer working with the CIA to poison Marley. Adding fuel to the fire is the rumor that a CIA agent confessed on his deathbed to killing the reggae superstar. This particular theory was around for years, but it was reignited in 2019 when an Instagram page titled "Submit Conspiracy Theories" reposted the theory to viral acclaim. This theory claims that a former CIA agent by the name of Bill Oxley confessed to poisoning Marley in his last dying breath.
My conclusion was there's probably not a timeline where that guy made it, because there were too many people that wanted to make sure he did not make it. So if they failed in 1976, they tried again. And if that one failed, I'm sure they tried again. And I don't think Bob Marley was meant to make it.
Can't have World War III with peace people going around.
That too.
Yeah, and it's interesting too how these Mandela effects, involve all these like really interesting subjects, everything from art to pop culture to history, the geography of the Earth.
Yeah.
There's one I just learned about today about the moon, and basically there's a type of moon called the Cheshire Cat moon or the smiling moon.
Okay.
Now I had never heard of that before, but it's when the crescent moon makes like a smile in the sky.
Okay.
My whole life, I've known the full moon, the waxing and the waning, and how it forms the crescent. I never saw the upside down, but then a lot of people were saying, of course, there's the Cheshire Cat moon. Where have you been all your life? And I'm like, I've never experienced that before.
Me neither. I stare at the moon a lot. That's a new one to me, but okay, interesting.
Yeah, and you can look that up, and it happens primarily in the spring and in the fall. So I got my eyes on the sky now to see if I can see this Cheshire Cat moon. So yeah, all different parts of our reality get affected by these Mandela effects.
Yeah.
We also tune into a lot of different causations, and like the time travel comes up, and the time core, which we would love to get into more too. We track back some of the timeline changes, especially having to do with history and like these battles that show up out of nowhere that we didn't know about, and like deaths and catastrophes. And a lot of it seems to be from a war deep into the future of different factions of countries and off planet that want to go back in time and influence. So there's like creations that didn't exist before that slowly, a little bit by little bit, changes the timeline, including things that messes with the founding fathers, or like I was reading a bunch of communist countries from the future of different timelines that were fighting a war with the U.S. time travel factions, and they're like trying to mess with each other. So, what do you think of the timeline wars?
Not touching that.
Yeah, it is like Sean was saying, like some things seem to be like some of these Mandela effects seem to be caused by time travel. The compression of the timelines, I call it the collapsing of the timelines and merging of timelines, all those types of things. There's another concept that I talk about called timeline insertions, where there will be an event in history that was never there before that gets inserted into the reality. So it's another way of thinking about it, and how all of a sudden something that people should know about, they never heard about that before. Like in 1920, when there was a big bombing of Wall Street, one of the first terrorist acts on U.S. soil happened in 1920. A lot of people don't even know about that. They're like, what? The Wall Street was bombed in the 1920s? I think they tried to blame it on the Italians, but there was.
They tried to blame it on an Italian anarchist, but anyway, that's another.
Yeah, you've heard of that then.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're from that timeline where that was part of your historical record.
Yeah. I remember hearing that story when I was a teenager, probably.
Yeah. And other people were like, oh, I thought 9/11 was like the only time like terrorists hit, US soil. So, but yeah, exactly. And there's no wrong answer to it. Like, yeah, that's definitely true for you. And it definitely might not be true for someone else. So
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's one of those things that not most of the time when stuff comes up and we're like, hey, most of them we're just like, okay, you know what? I don't got time to think about like what merged from that reality or this timeline or whether I remembered that correctly. I don't have time to think about it. So most of them we just don't have time to even think about, really, to just like try to sort out mentally. It's just like, I don't know, maybe not. So most of them we just let slide, whatever they are. But yeah, there's some of them that were not slidable, and we had to be like, wait a minute, we gotta like figure this one out and like be sure about this, because
exactly.
we both remembered it a certain way, and then had the internet tell us that that's not how it happened, and
Exactly.
I remember it happened the other way very specifically. But anyway,
Exactly.
yeah, it's a fascinating topic. It is a fascinating topic, and you could pull up examples for hours and talk about them and talk to people who remember it one way and the other way. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating topic for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like your Bob Marley example. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can understand why you don't want to talk about that subject. And I had like frequencies in my head when you said that. Anything you're allowed to talk about the timeline one, or if not, then we can just like, what do you want to talk about with the timeline?
Timelines are one of those things that, since there's really nothing we can do to impact them as individuals, and we just have to live with it, I encourage people to just live with whatever is happening, because we don't have much choice but to live with it. It's fascinating. I think it's super fascinating, and it's a topic that you can spend a lot of time talking about. But I don't think it matters, to be honest with you, because we're here where we are, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and we can analyze it all day long. But at the end of the day, we're still here, and we got to live with it, whatever it is.
Exactly. I do have one last question, unless Sean, you have anything else about this?
Yeah, I want. Did you want to bring up any subjects about the time core in like your interaction and experience that you don't usually talk about?
Who, me? No.
Is it mostly secret?
All of it.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I guess unfortunate, but whatever.
It's there's some crazy shit going on there, and I just.
Would you talk about that in your inner circle Zoom things, or is that not even like a possibility?
That's an interesting question. We'll have to talk about that. We might, because it's all catch and release and it disappears, because we're not going to save it, record it, and post it later. Maybe.
Yeah, you probably have to tell people too that hear you, and maybe not to repeat it. So that's just for their.
Oh, if people want to repeat it, they can. I'll just deny it if someone comes back and asks me later, did you say this? I'll say, okay. No. I'll tell people that. If someone comes back to me later and says, did you say this? I'll deny it. So I'll just say that straight up. This is the conversation where if you come back and say, did you say this later? No, I didn't say that. I'll totally deny it. It's that kind of conversation. You want the good stuff, then I'll deny that I ever said it later. So that's the way that works.
That makes sense. I gotcha. Okay, there was one thing that I wanted you to clarify that you said at the beginning when we first started talking to you about almost like how you viewed yourself as equipment.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that has to do with the whole topic of cloning and clones. But I wanted you to explain, just to clarify that, so people don't have a clear picture of what you actually meant by that.
Oh, so I have add-ons that most people don't have. So, and if someone were to come in and remove all of my add-ons, there wouldn't be much of a person left, to be honest with you. So, in that sense, if you tried to take all my super parts away and replace them with stock parts, I wouldn't be the same person anymore. So in that sense, I have so many add-ons that I'm not a stock person. I'm not a regular stock person. There's so much add-on stuff and technology in my body and in my central nervous system and so forth that, I wouldn't be able to live without it. Like,
is
if
it like
you took all
grown
that shit out,
organs?
I'd probably die.
Is it like grown organs and structure, or is it like cyberpunk or
a bunch of things that I don't necessarily want to talk about because I don't want to talk about offensive, defensive capabilities, but suffice it to say it covers a lot of territory. So again, if all that stuff was taken away or taken out, I'd either die immediately after the surgery or would not even barely resemble the same person. So it's just, they're add-ons. Makes me a different kind of person. Makes me a very different kind of person. Makes me an augmented person. And augmented people just have a lot of extra stuff that's technological in some cases. So it just makes you more like a piece of equipment that has to be repaired, maintained, updated, can become obsolete because the technology and machinery that's inside of you can become obsolete. So, and it's more of a metaphor than anything else, but because of all the extra spare parts that go involved and that again have to be replaced, upgraded, etc. When matched against other technological devices, either can be superior, inferior. So in that sense, yeah, it's like being a piece of equipment.
Have you learned anything from the equipment in possibly reverse engineering rudimentary psionic amplifiers? Anyway?
I don't know what you're talking about, and I would have no idea what you're talking about. And next question, please.
Okay, well, yeah. In our last show with Tony Rodriguez, a bunch of people in the comment wanted to know about ET. So it's like, oh, okay, that seems to be the things they like asking about. So Chris, are we ready to go into that kind of subject?
I think our audience, we've given our audience a lot to chew on for sure. So I would think so. Whatever Randy's willing to share.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to talk about some of the ET stuff, we heard some of the things you've talked about, like with insectoids on Mars, reptoids. I got quite a bit of questions. How many different humanoid type of species have you come across?
Oh, God damn it.
The cops showing up?
God damn it. Sorry, my car just died.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It was the alternator was acting like it might be a problem. Now I got to call AAA.
All right. We can schedule something
later.
Yeah,
no. Happy to, and would love to. So yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Can you plug some of your data again, and if you're having any shows or conferences coming up?
No conferences coming up right now. We have the thing coming up in December. Right. We're doing a thing in December with a friend of mine who has an organization called TESSA. I'm going to be embarrassed right now because I forget what it stands for, but they deal a lot with experiencers. And so they're doing an experiencer event that we're going to do a presentation for and a chat for in December sometime. We'll have that up on our website and so forth. But people want to get in touch with us, talk about classes, consult sessions. They can check us out on Facebook, University of Conscious Evolution, or our website, universityofconsciousevolution.com. And everything's there. All our links are there. All the information's there. People can sign up for our mailing list there. People can get on waiting list there for stuff that we got coming up, and click the links to sign up for courses right there and all that stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you find out about the link to that, send us the link. We'll put it in the description, as well as the coupon code or whatever for your courses, and we'll put that up.
Super cool. Yeah, totally.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
No worries. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Kendra.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice meeting you too. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming. I love you. And smash that like button, subscribe, click that notification bell, share this as much as possible. If you want to see more, that'll tell us, as well as comments, so the algorithm gets past the censorship for us. YouTube doesn't like this content, so every post and sharing is a rebellion. So get out there and do it, please. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for being with us for episode 12 of Symphony of Realities. Our goal was that we expanded your consciousness just a little bit more. And that's what our goal is with every continuing Symphony of Realities podcast. So thank you everyone that watched. Thank you, Sean, for being part of this and making it all possible. Thank you to our guest, Randy Cramer, and see you next time.
And let us know if you want to see more of Randy Cramer in episodes in the comments below. And if you have questions as well, and you can, to reach us, you can go to Sean Bond on Facebook, psionicleague.com. If you want to, in the membership, if you want to gain the courses, a lot of free abilities as well on the YouTube. On the courses, there's a bunch of abilities that will help you survive and thrive in this reality. And can you plug your content?
Yeah, so you can always find me on my website, quantumbusinessman.com. I do have a contact page there as well, so if you want to send me a message, that might be the best way to do it. And of course, always find the videos here on YouTube under Quantum Businessman. So thank you again.
Improve your business, improve your life, improve the world.
I like that. Until next time.